So, Q&A. I haven't been paying a lot of attention to the chat. Was a bit busy today. So if there's something I haven't answered, which is probably everything, go ahead and pop it in the chat channel now, and I'll stick around for a little while, and I'll answer your questions either about this game, about this session, about any other session, whatever you'd like. Sort of an ask me anything, but be perfectly honest. I know some things. I know many things. I don't know everything. But between this and maybe leaving some messages on the forums or on answers, we'll get you whatever your problem is solved. It's related to this game and my own 2D game. Fantastic. I have some balls falling down and the hero has to catch them. I used a few spawners at the top, like 5. The balls fall directly straight down from one of the spawn points, yeah, at a random time range. Yes. While I'm waiting for Tish to finish his question, excuse me, will the new UI elements be using events that we can subscribe to? There is an event system that's built in. I have not used it 100% robustly. Let's see what I can find. Let's take a look at a button that you can subscribe to. Event system, event trigger, raycast. To be honest, I sort of prepped this as a preview for the UI material, touch input, standalone input. I know the events are more for input events than say subscription events. Can you give me an example of what it is that you're trying to do? And Tish, what I didn't actually see the question. I see what you've done, but if you actually have a question on top of that, I'd like to see the answer to it. Is it better to use a sprite sheet for animations like 2D characters running, or to use an animator? I would suggest that whether you use a sprite sheet for your basic artwork or not, that you use some sort of bone animation to run your character. I would suggest that you look at either putting a skeleton rig of some sort and using animations on it that can be driven by Mechanim. Looking at spine is one of them that you can look at, and then also smooth moves. I know Smooth Moves has oops, come back here, Mr. Not me, that's what we Asset Star, please, thank you. Smooth Moves. Now there could be more bone animators. Smooth Moves is a bone animator. And so you do use a sprite sheet of artwork. And then you put bones on them, and you use bone animation to move them. And then this means you can retarget your animations. You can, just like when you're dealing with Mechanim, you can change the speed. So you're not dealing with, say, a sprite sheet of the walk cycle. You're using a sprite sheet for the individual items, and then you're animating them using some sort of skeletal rig that you can then repurpose. And I believe you can drive that with Mechanim's non-standard rig, or you can use one of the packages themselves. The other one is Spine, and I don't think Spine has an asset store. Come on, load, please. But I can Spine, please. No, I mean, that's going to be a quick search over here. Spine Unity control. Spine Unity. This will be enough. They were kickstarted quite successfully a while ago. Yeah, that's it. esotericssoftware.com. Unfortunately, I can't. I'd have to find it on this other rig. Let's see if I can find it over here. Esoteric. I see. Tish, getting back to your questions, you've got multiple spawners, and then you're getting too many balls in the field. What I would still do is try to have a single controller for your balls. Now, when we're looking at the code in this game with our game controller, we find the total width of the, and we do that in start, but we find the total width of the screen by taking a look at, come here, close down. So we know where our main camera is. We find the upper corner, and then we're taking a random range from because we're a game object centered from minimum max width or minus max width to positive max width. And we're spawning anywhere there. If you want to have multiple spawners, then you can create your new game objects. Oops, not that one. This one. So that would be your spawn object. Spawn point, maybe. And then you can give it, want to see it? You can give it a little tag. And come on, where is it? Why are we not moving? Let's move it this way then. So then you can put these up and then duplicate them. So now we have our spawn points. 5 of them. Instead of spawning at each one randomly, so they're all controlling themselves, spawn points. I'm making a parent game object for cleanliness, and then sticking my spawn points in them. So what you could do in your game controller, let's just pretend we have that here, then I would create a public game object, or transform maybe, because you want the transform list or array called spawn points. And then in Unity, I can take a look at my game controller. And so when this oh, what have I done wrong? Bah. Public transform spawn points. Did I mess something up while I was fussing with it? Yeah, it looks like I've done a accidental drag grab there. Yeah, I did. Public transform spawn points. And this needs to be an array. So when this compiles, because it's going to compile without any errors, yay! There's my spawn points there. And again, I can drag all 5 of these in. So I now have a list of my spawn points. I can, as my spawn point, come down here, and my spawn position right now is just a random range. Let's get rid of that. And then say vector3 spawn position equals, what did I call that? Spawn points. And again, the same thing that we're doing, with picking our ball, we want a random range from 0 to our spawn points dot length. So the square brackets indicate which is the index number, and we get a random index number from random range between 0 and the length, which in this case is going to be 5. Oddly enough, it is you never reach 5, because if you're curious about that, I can explain that. But when you're doing random range with ints, it'll be between 0 and 5, so it will always return a number between 0 and 4. This actually might really work. What have I done wrong? Spawn position. Vector3 spawn points. That's the transform position, sorry. So this is giving us the transform, and then we need its position. And then spawn, oh, spawn position. Did I make this? Spawn, that's a typo. It is a typo. That's what I get for Russian. Yay! And then it's warning us that we're never using max width. So now, when we play the game, we can see now that it's come from just those spawn points. So you're probably well ahead of me. I'm way back in the text here. Is 4.6 coming out soon? It's coming out soon. Absolutely soon. I'm not allowed to say anything more than soon. It's soon. Are there any plans in the near future to update the mono version? Currently, it matches an older version of mono. It is something that is under serious discussion. The biggest drawbacks to updating of mono, of course, is weighing backwards compatibility versus the advantages of updating. With Stew99, Adam with a package / assets for Hat Trick will be released before or after. No, it'll be released very soon. We're gonna, if it's not up already, it's gonna be up in the next day or two. Originally, I was just gonna release them for Hat Trick, but then we've decided to add some additional assets to it, and we will continue to push material to that. So you should just keep an eye on the asset store, and also keep an eye on the teaching section, because I'll put a post in the live training thread saying when it's been posted. Jeremy 80, thanks for the great tutorial. Will you please show how to modify the hat controls to allow the use of something like input axis horizontal? I'm trying to figure out how to control the left and right movement using, instead of the mouse, using a deleted link to keep the hat within bounds. Only briefly, if we look at it, where are we? Game controller, hat controller. You'd still want to have your fixed update in your if control, but you would essentially get input get access. Probably best to do that in update. We could talk about the best way to do that, but I would suggest that you do it in update, and then send the and turn a flag true, and then update that from the input. Update. So grab your input get access here. I'm not going to go ahead and write the whole thing. Var some value equals our input get access. And then you'd probably set a Boolean flag for the movement, and then you'd want to set it down here. If you just want to do it with, because this is going to work, this is with our mouse position. So you're looking for keys. I mean, you can always clamp the position inside the hat of the hat inside the screen using mathf.clamp based on the sides of the screen, which you'd use the same information that we did in to find the edges, except you'd use it for clamp. Trying to think if you're using left and right keys, input get access horizontal. Using your left and right keys, and then just simply increment the position based on the amount of time that the key has been held down, times, say, a speed, and you can move it back and forth. So, roughly, the target position plus equals input get access, or some value that we've taken from the input get access times our speed. That something along those lines would probably work, because then you're moving your position based on how long you're holding down the keys, and then you'd want to do a target position with clamp. I guess we're still doing that with target width, so it'd be the raw position here would be plus. You'd want to not make it you don't want to redeclare it each time. You'd need to save that raw position, so you'd need to declare raw position up here, and then set your raw position to be plus equal some value plus speed. I'm just sort of guessing, and we give this a go. There may be a hole in this because this is back pocket code. You'd also need a public float speed. That sort of thing. Private. Something along those lines. Is there no difference in efficiency between using a bone animator and a sprite cheese? I use a mechanism for my animations, but was wondering if it would be more efficient to do the animation in Flash. No, what I find is that if you're saving your discrete images to a sprite sheet of a walk cycle, you are limited in its you can be, depending on your frame rate, you're either using lots of frames or your animation looks stuttery. Whereas if you're moving your artwork on a bone animation, it can be smooth at any speed. You can speed up, you can slow down, you can transition between animations, you can retarget animations, so you could have multiple characters with multiple bits of artwork using the same bones, using the same animations. So I would strongly suggest, even if it's atlased individual pieces like the leg, the head, the arms, the hands, to put them on bones, to animate them, and to use some sort of animation controller to run them. Hi, how would I make the ball jelly? Like when it hits the hat. Ooh, I think that's beyond the scope of what we're doing here. That type of animation, physics-based animation, gets relatively complicated, and so it's really not something we can cover here. On the other hand, if you make a post on the forum, you can PM me the URL to that post to Adam Buckner. You'll find my links in the teaching section, and I'll see what we can do to find you an answer. Baloney Factory. Early in the tutorial on the start screen, you disabled the hat so the user couldn't move it around. Does the new GUI still function when time is set to 0? That's two different things. I disabled the hat purely by surrounding it with a boolean that says can control. Does the GUI function when time is set to 0? I would assume it should. Now, most UIs, if you're setting the time scale to 0, the UI should still continue to work, because that's a common way to pause what things are, a way to pause your game. So yeah, it would be silly to drop your time scale to 0 to pause your game and then find the UI doesn't work, because I know that it does work for Easy GUI, it does work for End GUI, so I'm assuming it's going to work for you GUI, but I've never tried it yet. Jeremy 80. Will you please show how to modify the hat controls to allow us to use something like input horizontal? I think I just showed that. If you're looking for deformation, I mean, again, I'm not necessarily advocating this particular one or saying that there aren't other ones. But again, on the asset store is a thing called, I believe it's Megafires. No, Mega something or other. Let's look at Megafires. I just spelt it wrong. And again, this is good for deforming things and stretching things. 3D mesh modifier system. It's not cheap. There could be alternatives. It's got 5 stars. It's got a lot of reviews. It's been around for a while. It's up to version 2.7.4. So if you're looking for something to modify a mesh at runtime, waving flags, squishing balls, that sort of stuff, take a look at that. Also, see if he has any competition, and see if there's something else that can be done to do that. The package will be called something along the lines of 2D asset pack. Sorry, Sod Hill. What will the asset package be called on the asset store? Will it be Hat Trick? No, not specifically. It might be in the description, but I believe it'll be something along the lines of 2D asset pack. Yeah, instead of using get access, you could use look for a specific key. You could. Mitralone, but input get access will also work because you can use that. It'll automatically get the arrow keys and the A and D keys. Excuse me. Excuse me. How can I modify the code for the hat position to be mobile? Very little, because the input is using the mouse. So you can use a touch, and the code will be the same because you're looking at the viewport, the camera screen position to the world position to move the hat. The only thing that it doesn't do is you'd need to put in something to smoothly move the hat to your finger, because you don't pick up and move the mouse, whereas you can pick up and move your finger to a new place. And currently, if you were to tap, the hat would just, in this code, would simply snap to the position of your finger. So you'd need some sort of move towards or lerp function to be able to make the hat move smoothly if you suddenly picked up your finger and put it somewhere else. Oh my god, I think I've gotten down to the bottom of the end of chat. Got down to the bottom of the end of chat. Okay, whatever. Hello, this is something I am having recently. When my collision happens, I play a sound through a different object, but there seems to be a small delay. Shouldn't be. How can I make sure the sound gets played at the exact same time as the collision happens? I would suggest that you post your code, excuse me, and maybe your setup in a forum post, and then have us take a look at it, because it should be the same. One thing I would look at is make sure there's no delay in the actual sound file, because I've seen in a couple of places where people thought that the code was delaying their sound, but if you actually then took the sound file and you popped it into a sound editing package, there was a small amount, the file was there, but the sound didn't start until a few beats into the sound. So it was playing the sound immediately, but the sound took a fraction of a second before the explosion or whatever happened. And that was an apparent delay, but it was in the actual media file. And so, yeah, exactly. I bet the beginning of the sound clip was silent. Try it once on the same game object. So like this, drop a ball. The moment the ball hits, it goes bang. And if it works there and doesn't work in your current setup, then you know it's a problem with the setup. But just double check to make sure that the sound file is actually correct, because it may, unless you've got some detailed sound editing equipment, you may not notice this. The limit, Tish, in this particular case, in my code, the limit is in the spawn loop, because we spawn a ball and then we wait for 1 to 2 seconds. So just by sheer limits of the logic here, you can't spawn too many balls. There is no discrete limit other than the fact that it takes a couple of seconds to drop out of the game, and you either catch it or you lose it. And then you spawn another ball, that you will only have a few balls on the game at any one time. So you could add a total of more or fewer or more balls by adjusting how much space is between them. If you actually need a hard limit, then you need to count them. You'd need to have, you know, a private int ball count. And somehow you would then, when you instantiate them, you'd need to have a ball count, you know, plus plus. And then when you destroy them, something is going to have to come along and decrement it. You'll need a, this is kind of garbagey here, but still, you know, a public, you know, ball destroyer, ball decrementer, you know, a ball update, I don't know, ball count update. And then whenever they're destroyed, you'd have to then count them, you know. If you really want to have a limit, specific hard limit to how many you have on there, or some other way of counting them. I mean, I'm probably not being the smartest in the world on to do that. Or you could have an array. One of the other ways to do that would be have an array or a list limiting the number of balls that you have. So it only has 5 balls in the list, and you spawn a ball if a ball is available. So you say, grab me, it's like pooling, and I can talk about, there's a lesson on pooling already on our website, and then you can recycle 5 balls, and when the 5 balls have been used up, you can't recycle another one until it's left the frame. Yeah, I mean, what I was noticing, Mitralone has the same idea, but you'll need some way to get that back because the destruction of the ball is going to be on the explode script. And these are being instantiated in the game, so you can't make a public reference to the game controller. You know, and then say, here, ball count update. You know, I would probably, for me, we're just already here and it's making me cringe a little bit, you know, have something here where it was int value. And then say ball count minus, you know, equals. I'd probably want to send a value rather than just have something be so automatic. But that being irrelevant, the problem that we have here is, don't think I'm going to compile. I've got a problem somewhere else in one of my other bits of garbage that we've been doing. This, well, we'll just undo this. I think that'll compile. Whoops. Who's not updated? Let's just nip that out. Okay. Will we get a compilation? That's what I get for making garbage code just to show you guys some value. Dump that. Yay. My point of all of this is that we now have, we're trying to grab a reference, and we have this public reference to a game controller, but we can't set it on the prefab because this game controller is an instance, and it is only in this scene. And this prefab is an asset that can be instantiated in any scene. So you cannot take an instance reference onto a prefab. So you need to be slightly more clever when you're instantiating a prefab that needs a reference to something. I'm not going to go into that here. We discussed that in the space shooter, the 3D space shooter one, where there are objects, there are hazards and things that need to get information, and they talk about how to do a find object or to do reference support. But so yes, you can count the number of balls, but you need something that's counting the destruction. The other thing is, maybe now I'm thinking about it, you'd put it on, you'd have to put it on things in the game, like put one thing on the hat that could recognize you destroying a ball. You could put something on the collider around the game that recognizes that you've destroyed a ball. But you're going to have to find some way to not just count when you instantiate them, but count when you destroy them, and there are many different ways that they can be destroyed. Yeah, the search and asset story is difficult. Yes, people are aware of it. It may be worth a forum post showing if you have a very specific problem. I'm sorry, let's Distu99 saying the search and the asset store is bad. Is somebody working on it? Do you know any tricks that can help? The answer is not really. Lots of time I want to search only one category, e.g. scripts. I thought you could search in a category, but maybe you can't. Maybe you're right, because when you search for Mega, you're in... And we search for Puppet. Yeah, I suppose that's the whole thing. There's no way to limit that. Oh, no, I keep getting that. Is it the only thing with Puppet in it? Let's try something. Home. Puppet. I suppose that's probably the only Puppet. That looks like another skeletal system. Hey, so there's competition for smooth moves. Puppet. That's a bone animation system. I didn't see that one. I have to look into that. Anyway. Epic Gamer World. If I use art from the asset store and upload a game to the App Store, no. The whole point to art from the asset store, unless for some reason they specifically say you can't, say that you have an example character, but I can't imagine it not being there. That's the whole point to the asset store, is you get your assets from it. Anything that Unity distributes is fine for you to use in any way. But the whole point to the asset store is to distribute assets. So if you will go and buy a 3D model, that's what you're for. These are to go into your games. If I buy this, spend my $47.50, it's giving me a license. The only ones that I think get a little bit funky are when you're dealing with things like editor extensions or scripting, where you have to buy one per seat rather than just one per or one license per seat or one license per project, when you're dealing with code frameworks, rather than one per studio or one per owner. I'm trying to find one. Yes, like this one, Playmaker. This extension requires one license per seat. So if you've got 4 people in your studio, you need to purchase the license 4 times. But yes, the whole point to this is that you don't need to make your assets. Well, I need to wrap it up. It's been about an hour of Q&A. Any last questions that you have there, or last little dribbles, or are we all fine? How are we doing? Sometimes it depends how I feel when I'm editing it. A number of times the questions have been unimportant and the answers even more boring. So I lop off the Q&A or bits of it. So it's really going to depend how I feel. But if we've got good stuff, I'll include it. We sort of want to keep our broadcasts to an hour, and we will now be at about an hour and a half to 2 hours with the Q&A. Next live training, you can just go to the live site, and you should be able to, I think it's next week, next Tuesday, and see what you get there. Next Tuesday. Cool. All right. I'll be wrapping it up. Thanks for coming. And don't forget, for the second time, come back here, Mr. Cursor. There we go. Oops, push, please. Thank you. Go ahead and follow us at Unity 3D, at Mike Geig, at Will Goldstone, and me at the Ant Ranch. Thanks for coming. I hope you had a great day. And don't forget, any comments, criticisms, praise, questions, posted on the forum as well under teaching. So the main forum under teaching, you'll find us in the stickies under free live training. Thanks for coming.